So I know we've had an interesting few years. What are some of the trends that you've seen within human capital consulting and even HR within organizations?
Yeah, I think for the human capital space, the last few years have been fascinating in terms of the dynamic of the different changing markets. I think one of the things that a lot of organisations found in that, or those more challenging times, was sort of both the human, really focusing on the human, but also their purpose, often without consciously thinking about it. You know, a lot of organisations really focused on what was important to them, what brought people to those organisations. And I think from a consultancy or human capital perspective, a lot of firms have worked with some brilliant corporate, all types of organisations in helping them draw out and focus on that. And as we've shifted, I think, into slightly different economic spheres, we've had very busy times and then times where things have dropped off a little bit. I think organisations really need to keep focusing on the human. I think a big focus also for leadership. A lot of organisations have brought in consultancy advice to support their executive leadership, putting a lot of focus on how those individuals engage and, I suppose, attract and excite the workforce that is working for them at the moment, but also people who, you know, will become to the future. We are seeing, I think, again at the moment, a shift in the market with a focus on a lot of retention of core talent. One of the key things that any business has, obviously, to state the very obvious, is the talent within the organisation. And I think from the consultancy firms that we've worked with across the globe, there have been key themes there around their ability to enhance, to draw out and support organisations in that talent agenda.
So people were at the centre of the business, you know, during the difficult years that we've had, and now it feels like we've maybe lost sight of that, and leaders really need to make sure that they're putting, you know, people front and centre when they're making those difficult decisions. Sometimes businesses have to make difficult decisions, but it's how do you maintain a culture after the fact, and how do you make sure that employees still feel like there's a purpose in the business?
Yeah, I think for those businesses which connect well with their core, what they're about, their values, their purpose, they will come through both very buoyant times, but also more challenging times well. I think with the risks that can occur if we are seeing more challenging markets, those businesses who will take financial decisions, which at that time will be the right thing to do, but who will weight that financial decision over, you know, their purpose as an organisation, their longer term goals, and those that can navigate the combination of the two, I think, are those that will be really successful, you know, both in the short but also the mid and the long term.
And you mentioned something to me earlier, sustainable leadership. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think for every organisation, the environmental, social and governance agenda is a really, really important factor for so many reasons. I think tying that into sustainable leadership and looking at individuals in organisations who are understanding of how important their role is for both the success of the organisation, but also for bringing all those employees with them, maybe their immediate colleagues, but also the wider business of what they're doing in terms of their vision, their leadership, and their strategy that will serve the organisation well around its long-term sustainability goals. And we've seen absolutely quite a lot of investment or a lot of demand of the consultancy clients that we work with around executive coaching, executive leadership, often one-to-one, sometimes in more group setup, to enable them to perform at the highest levels, or to continue to perform at the highest levels. And I think, you know, companies, organisations, understanding and having a much better value for that investment to bring in that external counsel, that external advice from those kind of consultancies, where perhaps previously they might have been less ready for that, or less just aware of their need to do so. And that has certainly been one of the trends that I think we have seen in recent time, but I think will continue, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you seen changes in how human capital consultancies operate in the last few years?
Yes, I think probably along with most businesses, some things, there will always be change, but I think it's been particularly pronounced within human capital consulting. Often in the past, a lot of time spent on client site with organisations which involved travel and use of resources, hotels, all kinds of things on that basis. There's been a very pronounced shift, I think, from organisational demand from their consultancies, not in lessening the standards of the quality or their output. Absolutely, that is still there, but a shift in how that is delivered and how that is, or how they support those organisations practically, in a use of more digital technology to enable less travel, less burning of fossil fuels or use of energy, more sustainability for the individual as well. I think an understanding of for those consultants who will still absolutely be working incredibly hard, but a better understanding and a balance, I think, for the individuals as consultants, that they will still have to hit incredibly stretching goals, but I think an awareness from those organisations who use the consultancies that they weren't just an expendable resource that sometimes perhaps they could have been perceived as before. So again, I think maybe just a bit more of a balance and awareness of, as human beings, these people who support us and work with us and give us great support and knowledge and expertise are human beings. They're not just a resource that we can, a switch we can flip on and off.
Yeah. So human capital consultancies, because of the pandemic, have been forced to think about how they could reduce travel to be more environmentally friendly, and also the personal impact of travel on their employees and looking at how they could reduce that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we link that into, I'd say probably actually looking from a talent perspective, one of the outcomes of, different markets, different challenging and different working practices has meant that human capital consultancies, both themselves, but also in terms of advising and supporting their clients, have taken a much broader view around how to access, to tap into, to look for different talent pools. There is still a limit around certain, from an employment law perspective, certain jurisdictions or certain countries. I think one of the great things, the great benefits that I've seen come out of the more difficult economic climates is that businesses will consider people and look at talent pools in a way that they wouldn't have done previously, which is, I think, beneficial for the organisation, it's beneficial for the individual. Simplistic in many ways, but a really positive and beneficial outcome that I think hopefully long term I don't think that will dissipate. I think businesses just have got their head around the fact that through the demands of incredibly competitive both talent pools that they're operating in and for, that they have to be more pragmatic around that, and that has definitely been a real positive.
Going forward, what do you see happening within the human capital consulting market?
I think probably three main things. I think firstly, the usage and utilization of AI will only continue to increase. I mean, it's impacting our lives in so many ways, but I think that's a huge both opportunity, also challenge, but a great opportunity for consultancy firms on how that can blend into supporting the work they're doing in their people agenda. I think the focus around environmental, social and governance, and particularly sustainability, is something that for human capital consultancy firms will only continue to grow. I think most organisations of a large footing, of a decent size, are already operating in some way, shape or form in that space. I think it's a space that there will be great evolution within. There will be change, but that is something that won't disappear, it won't go away. It's the challenge of our lifetimes, and I think for consultancy firms it's an absolutely superb opportunity for them to do great work for their clients and to do something great for the world. Thirdly, I think there is already some consolidation in the human capital consulting industry. That has always been a factor, but we are seeing more of the smaller firms being acquired by the much larger global players, which gives opportunity for those smaller firms to broaden their footprint, their base. It's disruptive. There will also continue, I think, to be new organisations, new firms coming into the market with different propositions who've got a different opinion, and that is something always exciting to see when you meet a business that you've not heard of before, you've not worked with, and you are finding about the kinds of things that they're doing, how they're helping their clients, and the impact they're having. That's always something that I look forward to seeing in the market I operate in.